Well, welcome once again to the Dr. Digital Podcast. It's the only podcast that has to do with CEOs and business leaders who want to grow their business through social audio. And I have a special guest this morning, and it is almost morning. I guess it's just noon. So Kelly Ann Gorman is my guest today. She is in hot Vegas, although she's usually my neighbor right here in the San Diego area. But I wanted to get her on the program because she's the host of Kellyanne Cares podcast. So I got a fellow podcaster with me, an author. So I have a fellow author with me, and everything is messy is also part of her business as well. And she also is into audio publishing. And those who are listening to the podcast know my prediction is everything on the internet is going to be audio. So I'm looking forward to talking with her. Before we get started with the interview, I've got why quality over quantity is the key to effective content. And this is actually coming from one of my new sponsors. I want to give them a shout out to JJM Advertising, and they have a lot of great articles. If you're interested, please get in contact with them or with me directly. I can get you in their direction. So with that as an introduction, Kellyanne, it's great to have you. Welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you get into the current business that you are doing, or several businesses that you are doing right now?
First of all, thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
Second, I kind of fell into podcasting. I actually, ironically, am in Vegas, like you said now, doing some projects with clients, but I actually did used to live here for 6 years, and I was in luxury travel. And very long story short,
sure.
I was diagnosed with MS and a disease called NMO, neuromyelitis optica. And those diseases were supposed to leave me blind and paralyzed. So at the end of the day, I can't really be meeting and greeting my clients on their jets
Okay.
if I'm about to be blind and paralyzed. So what do I have at the end of the day? I have my voice. So I just figured out a podcast and launched it right away. That was 2017. Turns out I was misdiagnosed, and I actually represented myself in 6 medical malpractice cases, taught myself the law, did all of that. The whole story's on the Kellyanne Cares podcast if you want to listen to that.
Sure.
But I actually closed those cases in 18 months alone, which is insane. But I had my voice. So I'm like, this is the only way to make money. I had to pivot just like everybody did in the pandemic. So I launched my show 2017. When I did that, being in the online space, other business owners, entrepreneurs wanted to know how I just did that. And so, like I usually do with everything else, I created something that needed to exist. I needed to help other business owners launch podcasts and show them how to do it. So I launched different programs. I actually develop, I write, produce, show my clients how to monetize, all things production. Now, that's how I got into this podcasting world in 2017, 5 years ago. I did not know how to upload a file. I did not know how to produce. I was not a writer. I just did it. And that's what I think is like my number one tip is if you feel it in your gut and you're creative and you need to monetize something, especially being an entrepreneur, so many things are going to fail. But that's how I got into podcasting. I thought I was going to be blind and paralyzed. I only had a voice. I launched a show. Others wanted to know how. Now that's all I do.
It's really interesting because you're almost taking the words out of my mouth. I tell everybody should be podcasting because that's one thing that you do have. Almost everybody, you got a voice. So if you want a voice, amplify it. So now that you're describing several things from 2017, let's say, what would you say are some of the biggest changes? And you touched on a little bit with the pandemic. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the changes that you've seen over the last several years.
Yeah, I mean, just since the pandemic, I mean, I'm extremely grateful. I was very lucky. I was absolutely slammed during the pandemic because I already knew how to pivot my business. I already knew what happened when things shut down. Like I actually had that experience already. So I was helping so many business owners who had to close the doors on their brick and mortars and other businesses because of the pandemic pivot and figure out like, okay, what's next? And that's when podcasting truly blew up. Yes. Because audio is everywhere. My show's globally syndicated as yours is. And it's just like, you put out this content over and over again to help more people, whether it's business owners or not, but everybody is searching for information, whether it's health, whether it's business, whether it's money, whether it's legal. Like we all have a voice, so just use it, you know? And then during the pandemic, so much has changed, especially with the revenue, the ad spend, the dollars. Anybody can make money from day one of podcasting. And I think that's the biggest misconception, is that you can't. You have to have like millions of listeners, millions of followers. No, you don't. You have a voice, you have a message, you share it, people need to hear it, and then the rest just follows, you know? And I think that so much has changed with the money and the growing of shows and the networks involved. And, you know, I feel like in 2017, I was the only person developing shows. Now, like, everybody's doing something with it, you know, because it's a market that's constantly growing that you can consistently make money in, you know? So I think the pandemic had a huge part in how podcasting changed from 2017 to right now.
Could you identify some of the hot growth areas? For example, people listening, and like you said, not everybody knows how to make those transitions and to adjust themselves, but could you identify some hot growth areas that you've noticed that perhaps would be good hints or places that people can look into for the running a business?
TikTok, number one. Two is LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been my number one money-making machine since, I don't even know, 2012, because I love to meet new people. I've been a people person my whole life. I like to be real. I don't like to use software to generate like 5 million long messages. I like to connect with real people, and then the rest will follow. That's when the money comes. That's when the business comes. You never know who's watching your content that you're constantly putting out. But right now, TikTok just surpassed Google with SEO. So whatever somebody is searching, you need to make sure that you're using SEO and able to monetize whatever content you're putting out, whether it's healthy recipes or business related. TikTok is insane. Like, I've sold more books through TikTok by just commenting on other posts, and people just find me. I'm not spending money on ads. I've never once spent $1 on any ads on any platform, because I created an affiliate program. Because when I launched my podcast development service, all my clients were referring me more clients. Same thing with the pandemic. So I'm like, I would much rather pay you 10%, 20% commission than Facebook and Instagram. So that's what gained me this clientele, you know? It's all based on referrals. So when I'm on TikTok, I'm just SEOing everything. I'm just putting out what people want. And it grows your brand, whether you like it or not. And you just have to be consistent. But I think TikTok and LinkedIn, Instagram is dead in my eyes. Like, I'm just so over Instagram. TikTok and LinkedIn, my top two. Like, you can grow anything if you're consistent, but TikTok is where everyone is right now. And it's not too late. I feel like people are like, oh, well, I didn't go on before the pandemic.
Sure.
Start now. You just need to start. That's it.
Mm-hmm. If you were thinking of, and I'm sure there's a lot of business owners who listen to my podcast, and you're interacting with a lot, obviously, too, as well. What kind of things would you recommend for a business owner to consider? And then what kinds of assist would you say that you're able to provide for them?
So I am the most organized human on the planet. And that's one of my services I have. It's called On Demand, where I help organize you. It's basically like a 3-in-1 service. So it's basically getting like a personal assistant, a VA with an online business manager, and you get me in your back pocket. I can't come to your office and tell you how to organize your systems like how I have mine, because your brain's not going to work that way, most likely. But it is going to work in a way where you feel comfortable. So I'm like, okay, what is a mess? Like, let's figure it out. First, you need to be organized. Find a system that works for you. That's always going to be trial and error. You know, my obsessive, like, highlighting rainbow colors, like, that might not work for you. And the reason why I created that, to be honest, is because when I was going through chemo, I couldn't remember things. And so I started highlighting. So now I still have it to this day where that's the formula I use. Like, I remember colors. So if I'm looking at a month at a glance of what I need to get done, if I see a whole lot of green, that means like, oh my God, I have a whole lot of bills due, or a whole lot of blue. That means like I have a lot of doctor's appointments this month, and that's just my own way. But you need to find a way that you feel more organized, because that's when the creativity will kick in, which is when you create content, which is what you're going to put out there to eventually make you money in your business, or with like your food blog or whatever you're working on, right? But then also you have to make sure that you're repurposing your content. And that is something that I preach to my clients, whether I'm business coaching them, life coaching them, or anything having to do with podcasts and YouTube. You have to repurpose your content. That has been my number one key in generating sales, generating downloads, like anything money related, bringing into my business. You have to consistently repurpose content. And the way that I do that the best is because I have a plan, going back to being organized. That's how I do it. That's how I've grown my show to where it is. And I do everything else the same.
Gotcha. No, you've offered a number of really great tips and suggestions for people to follow. So if they were interested, because I'm sure they would be based on your success in this field, how would they get a hold of you, and what should they do if they were interested in getting in touch with you to see what you could do and how you could assist them or help them?
So the main way is to visit my website, kellyanngorman.com, everythingismessy.com. And, you know, I wrote a book about all of this as well. It's short and sweet. You can read it under 2 hours. It's called Everything is Messy. My whole life is on the internet, so I'm very easy to find. You can connect with me on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. You just search Kelly Ann Gorman Official. TikTok is Kelly Ann Gorman Official. But just head to my website, kellyanngorman.com or everythingismessy.com. You can find my show, which is on all global platforms. And we're almost in 100 countries. I'm like patiently waiting for that 3-digit. And you can connect with me there. All my products, services, programs, merch line, like everything I do is on my website. If you want like the whole version in one bubble.
Yes, it kind of sounds like me. I've been on the internet since 1994 ago when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, but I got you. So
yeah, I feel the same.
That's awesome. So thank you for joining us today, and especially putting some time into this. You're in your car in Las Vegas. I hope we have the air conditioning on. So
yes, it is on.
You gotta have it. It's hot. So it's warm here in
so hot,
but it's really hot in Las Vegas. So my special guest today, Kelly Ann Gorman. Thank you so much, Kelly Ann. I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. And one more shout out to JJ Advertising, my latest sponsor. They've got a great article, Why Quality Over Quantity is the Key to Effective Content. So if you're looking for content or anything else, any services, please get in touch with me. Once again, this is the Dr. Digital Podcast. Until the next exciting episode, the only podcast that is dedicated to business leaders and CEOs who want to grow their business using social audio. Until next time, take care. See ya. Deus Vol.